Okay, it's 1 p.m. It's June the 8th, 2021. Welcome, council. We have a full complement of council staff. Welcome today, and we have some special guests that we'll introduce in a little bit here. So I'll call this meeting to order, and it is 1:01. I'll ask for a moment of silent reflection at this time so we may reflect upon our duties of today as councilors. Thank you. Thank you. I'll ask council if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest at this time or at time of the subject. Please let me know. Seeing no hands, then I'm looking for a motion then for the approval of the agenda for today, June 8th, 2021. Motioned by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Looking for a motion for the approval of the minutes as printed for minutes of May 11th, 2021, and then the public meeting minutes of May 25th, 2021. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Laurie Burt. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from these minutes? All right. Oh, sorry, Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, that's through you, Mayor. Candace, any update on the police service board restructuring? Any more update from when we met last?
Everyone followed the proposal and it was submitted for one board and we met the deadline.
Awesome. Okay.
That's all we know as of right now.
Okay.
So yeah, everyone supported it and one board was submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions? All right, seeing none. On to the consent agenda then. So correspondence for information. So there's a lot here. It's C1 through C2 on to C12. I'm looking for a motion as circulated for information. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Archer. All in favor? Oh, wait, no. Any questions or anything want to be pulled? Any discussion? No, seeing none, then all in favor then, please. And that's carried. Thank you. All right, on then to delegations. So then we have Inspector Lisa Darling with us, Staff Sergeant Chris Gonzalez, and Michael Kavanaugh. And who would like to go ahead and speak on this? And it has to do with the ATV/ORV approach. Please.
Your Worship, that would be, sorry, just some feedback there. That would be me, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Chris, thanks.
Okay. We'll let Candace bring up the Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, township staff, and members of the public. We've been asked to provide council with a short presentation with respect to the legislative changes that occurred on January 1st of 2021. Having consideration for everyone's time, we have kept this presentation short to allow for more questions and discussion at the end. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of, or the outline of our presentation. So this presentation will touch on the following: what types of vehicles might be observed on township roadways, the legislative changes that occurred, enforcement items, and of course, lastly, and I think where all members of council will participate, is the question and answer discussion. Next slide. So we've all been bored by death by PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going to read the slides verbatim. So this is, but several of the common all-terrain vehicles that you'll see, that you have seen on roadways, that you've seen on the trails, the 1 up and 2 up. They're designed to carry 1 rider and 2. Next slide, please. These are slightly newer, but have been around for several years. They are the side-by-sides, known to us as recreational off-highway vehicles and utility terrain vehicles. They're designed to carry 2 and 4 passengers, similar to a vehicle. You would need seatbelts in these types of vehicles, and still helmets and whatnot. But people can expect that these side-by-sides will be on municipal roadways. Next slide, please. These are somewhat newer. They're the extreme terrain vehicles. Many of you will know them by one of the manufacturer's names as Argos. 6 or more tires. If these vehicles are equipped with tracks, they would not be allowed on the roadway. We don't expect to see too many of these vehicles. The entry level price point for these are 13,000 plus, and they're not built for comfort. But under the new legislation, the pictured item there at the bottom would be allowed on municipal roadways. Next slide, please. Again, these are not new to probably anybody on council. What would commonly be described as your standard dirt bike. You will now see them on roadways. So before, they have been allowed plated. There was certain types of dirt bikes that could travel roadways. Now they'll be more frequent, tire style, mud guards and whatnot. But again, your standard dirt bike is now included in this new off-road vehicle. Next slide, please. So here we get into the legislative changes. On January 1st, 2021, the Getting Ontario Moving Act allowed or changed the way in which a municipality or township permitted the use of these vehicles. So absent of any bylaw prohibiting or restricting off-road or all-terrain vehicles, which is the case in Asphodel-Norwood, that all the vehicles previously presented are now able to utilize township roadways. So basically the next 3 slides say the exact same thing. As of January 1, what you saw are able to use municipal roadways. Next slide, please. This is more of a housekeeping change. Some of the enforcement mechanisms that were in the Off-Road Vehicles Act have now shifted over to the Highway Traffic Act, a regulation under it, and that's Ontario Regulation 316 for 2003. That gives us the enforcement options for the off-road vehicles. Next slide. So what, and I know council is likely aware in conversations with your CAO that you're faced with a choice. So it's you're all in right now. To opt out, you would need to pass a bylaw, either again restricting or prohibiting the ATVs, off-road vehicles on the municipal roadways. Next slide, please. So the enforcement, and I know this is the meat of the presentation. So again, just rehashing what I said in an earlier slide, Ontario Regulation 316 for 2003 under the Highway Traffic Act gives us most of our enforcement authorities. And what you can expect is that as council and just as members of the public, when these vehicles are operating on any of our roadways, we expect them to behave as if they were driving a 4-door sedan or a pickup truck. So they have to abide by all of the same rules of the road. There's different restrictions in regards to equipment and whatnot, but basically, and they would all be covered under this regulation. The Off-Road Vehicles Act gives us some authorities when these machines are off of the municipal road allowances and into trails and private property. And then the Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act, that just covers the legislated requirement to have insurance on the machine. The Off-Road Vehicles Act requires the insurance when you're crossing the highway. The Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act covers it when you're operating on the highway. So next slide, please. The common areas of enforcement, and these are where we get most of our complaints. Age. So the minimum operating age is still 16. Licensing, you need a minimum of a G2 or M2 to operate any of the described vehicles on township roads. Vehicles must be registered and plated. Operators must provide proof of valid insurance. Speed limits. So this policy or new legislation only applies to roadways with a speed limit of 80 kilometers or less. But when the roadway is 80 kilometers, these off-road vehicles can only travel a maximum of 50 kilometers. They would be subject to a speeding fine if they were caught not observing that rule. When it's 50 kilometers or less, the speed limit would then be 20 kilometers per hour. General operation requirements, and I touched on this a little bit before, but these vehicles must be operated in a safe manner, similar to how you would operate your motor vehicle. Careless operation applies. Requirements to drive on the right side of the road or the shoulder, and to move back when not possible forthwith. Helmets, seatbelts, and other safety equipment have to be utilized, and we have enforcement options under all of that. Next slide, please. So fortunately for you having the OPP, we have a wide array of equipment. We have officers, multiple officers trained in ATV operation. We have a lot of vehicles in our frontline fleet capable of trailering the ATVs to and from locations that we need to patrol or enforce. Situation depending, we have the ability to get more resources, more vehicles, more people, more ATVs, if that's what the situation requires. Next slide, please. Currently, we do have 2 ATVs at the office. We have 2 more that we administer for our policing partners in Hiawatha. So at any given point, we share resources, we manage that. Again, in Northumberland, which you guys border with, they have ATVs that we're able to draw on in an emergency, and vice versa. And we can send our equipment to them. So for enforcement, I thought some relevant stats would be appropriate. So our detachment has investigated 2 ATV collisions so far, 2 reported ATV collisions so far in 2021. None occurring in the township. There was a fatality in North Kawartha earlier this year, and a non-fatal accident or collision in Douro Township. Thank you to Mike Kavanaugh. He caught this error. But year to date, there have been 7 calls for service relating to ATVs and their operation in the township. So we're looking at 1 a month on average so far. And those calls basically consist of operation not in a safe manner. We have ATVs doing wheelies or donuts in the high school parking lot. Some callers believe that the operators were too young. Others operating their machines too loudly. So we have the ability to address each of those concerns. Next slide, please. So our regional operational analyst has created, this is a larger, more global perspective of Central Region, which includes Northumberland Detachment, City of Kawartha Lakes, ours, Halliburton, Huntsville, Bracebridge, Collingwood. So if you take it as a quick snapshot, this is what have been observed in relation to collisions in Central Region with a little bit of information from over the province. So most of the victims in ORV or off-road vehicle fatalities are men. That's a 2/3 stat. 17% of the deceased were not wearing helmets. Contributing factors: loss of control, other, improper turns. I think this we put this slide in just to show you that comparatively speaking, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of motor vehicle collisions a day in the province. ATVs will make up or off-road vehicles will make up a significant portion of those collisions moving forward if your township decides that they're going to be part of the regular motoring public. It's just the law of averages. The more that's out there and the more that they're utilizing, they will become involved in collisions. But for this information graph or this graphic is good up until the 26th of April when the information was extracted, and we're not seeing, and for lack of a better word, carnage that some people would expect with these machines being introduced to the average motoring public. So that's just a quick snapshot. The presentation at this point is over, leaving plenty of time for questions, comments, concerns. And that's why I have, again, Inspector Darling can go with a hot mic. We have Sergeant Michael Kavanaugh, who's one of our frontline platoon sergeants. He recently filled in as the acting staff sergeant here, so he brings a wealth of frontline experience as well. So I'm just going to mute my mic, and thank you, Your Worship, for giving us the time to make this presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I apologize to any public that may be listening. I forgot to welcome you to our meeting of today also, or if you're going to view the live YouTube later. Anyway, my apologies for that. Okay, any questions from council at this time on the ORV ATV topic? Councillor Burt, Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
That's quite all right. Through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming and doing the delegation today. These are just questions directly related to what you just have shown us in the PDF version. So you had mentioned the speed limit's 80 kilometers, max is 50, 50 kilometers, max is 20. Most of our, all unless it's signed, speed limit is 60 kilometers in the township. Does that mean it would be 40? I'm just throwing that out there. And also on that, is there extra signage required, or is that just something that the operator of an ATV is to know? So just wondering about that. That's the first question. And I guess the other, you'd mentioned noise. Is that noise, is that covered under the Highway Traffic Act, or is that a noise bylaw? So those two, I'll have more comments later, but those are my two questions.
Go ahead.
I can help assist with this. The speed limit would be 20 kilometers an hour if it was the posted 60. There's not going to be any additional adjustments. As far as signage, that would be up to the municipality, because as a rider, they're responsible for understanding and knowing the rules of the road before they get on their machine and head out. For the off-market mufflers that these guys sometimes add to the machines and stuff like that, that falls under the noise, excessive noise under the Highway Traffic Act. And that's some of the changes when they allowed these off-road vehicles onto the road. They fall under that for our enforcement. So yes, if you have an aftermarket muffler on there that causes excessive noise, then that would bring it to our attention, and we could go ahead with enforcement on that particular issue.
Good, thank you.
Councillors, anyone else? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Again, thank you very much for the presentation. Just to build upon that, so the signage we wouldn't need, that's up to the rider to know. That's awesome. And my question was more around underage riders. So if they're stopped, what sort of transpires, just so I have them kind of clear in my mind, that if an underage rider is stopped by the OPP, kind of what are next steps? What happens?
That would be no different than a vehicle, where we would want to identify the person, determine if they're eligible to operate that motor vehicle, make sure that there's insurance on the vehicle and the person, and it's properly registered. So if they do not have a valid, at the minimum, the G or the M2, then they're not eligible to ride.
Okay. And what, like, is there a fine for that, or kind of just what happens then? So you've deemed them ineligible to be able to drive, so they don't have a G2, M2?
Yes. The offense would be drive motor vehicle on a highway without a license. So
okay, so it's a fine. They would be fined.
That's correct.
Okay, sorry, I just think, and just if I can ask one quick second question, Roger, around the, so if we were to prepare a bylaw, because I was thinking, do we need to prepare a bylaw that speaks to the off-market or mufflers? But you're saying actually that can be covered already through regulations that are in place with excessive noise and these aftermarket mufflers that are very loud.
Yep, that's correct. That's regulations under the Highway Traffic Act in regards to equipment in these vehicles.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And through your worship, just to add to that, so under the Highway Traffic Act, the regulation, the Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act, and the Off-Road Vehicles Act, they are all provincial statutes in which we already have an enforcement and prosecution method in place. As we get into bylaws, and I'm not sure what conversations have been held at the township level, but the city of Peterborough is looking at a new way of prosecuting the bylaws through an administrative monetary penalty system, which isn't in place yet. Right now, the criminal courts and the provincial court, which handle the provincial statute offenses that we're talking about that would come of these offenses, are bogged down. They're trying to, because the courts were closed because of COVID, they're trying to catch up, but it's going to take a long time for that to happen. I guess what I'm saying without saying it is, let's leave, whether you decide to pass opt in or out, that's totally your decision. But the Highway Traffic Act and the regulations already stipulate a wide range of offenses. Once you start delving into bylaws, then you're taking on that enforcement, the prosecution of it, the ensuring that there's court time and whatnot. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I have one question, and I was wondering if other municipalities within the county, how important it is to educate the public on ATV use, almost like drunk driving, and that information that goes out to the public to say, okay, ATVs may be allowed, and those regulations. Is that important, or is that something that's it's done more at a municipal level, or is that something that would be province-wide?
I can respond to that, and through you, Your Worship. Education is one of the three pillars of community engagement in policing. So engagement, enforcement, and education. So we have our media officer, our frontline officers are trained in education as well, because sometimes an offense notice isn't the appropriate way of dealing with it, when a verbal warning and correction. I know most recently the Police Service Board adopted a proposal of a single Police Service Board social media account for issues specifically just like this. So we have officers trained in media. They can, and again, with our ATV operators, we can do quick demonstrations, 30-second, I don't want to say TikTok videos, but Instagram posts that show, what operators should and should not be doing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Archer.
Through you, Mayor. Can you tell me what the hours of operation is, or is there any limit on the hours of operation for the ATVs?
That is something that can be manipulated by use of the bylaw. We know that recently Havelock, Belmont, and Methuen put a restriction on the use of ATVs within the township, and I believe it's 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me, but
Okay.
But they must have the required safety equipment, like any other vehicle would on the highway, in order to operate after dark.
Okay.
Yeah, I seen on, I think it's Highway 30 going south or something. Well, anyway, it's the Trent River Bridge anyways. There's certain things that if the ATV crosses that main bridge over the Trent River, it's supposed to have all its lights on. So it's just some safety precautions for vehicles, because there's no way for them to really get off the road for cars coming towards them. So I have a question too. I just wondered, we know who some of the bad apples are in town that say drive through the high school or across the park kind of quick, or take a shortcut across some of the green grass that some neighbors have, and one thing after another. I just wondered what the thoughts were from the police that, so a ticket sometimes is just a joke, or they want to take you to court or something like that. But if impoundment was ever thought about instantly, take that machine away, have it towed basically, or carted away, and then they'd have to pay extras and time away from the machine as a lesson to be learned for some of the bad apples in town. Has this been thought of, or is it just to try to be nice first and then have them laugh at you later?
I don't think any ticket's a joke, because it's a gradual sort of process where we have to start engaging these people. Maybe they've never been approached by the police before, and they don't know what proper ridership is. But when they engage in stunts and wheelies and they lay down some rubber, and they're on a highway, it falls under stunt driving regulations and laws. So we can impound a vehicle if they're engaging in those sort of behaviors, and seize it for 7 days and suspend their licenses as well.
Good, thanks for that. One other question I'd like to give is, so the provincial highway, Highway 7, basically would be off limits to these machines. I would take it. You're just talking about municipal and county roads. Is that what we're talking?
Presently, the only roadways restricted in the area are Highway 115 and 35.
Oh, really? Okay. Thanks. I seen a hand there. Was that Deputy Mayor Burt? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. And just one more question. And I did address this at county as well, but I wanted to bring it up here. I have to assume that, and I shouldn't assume anything, but the OPP and police would prefer to have a wider band of regulation versus piecemeal, one township versus another township versus another township. I would think it would be much easier for enforcement if it was county-wide or region-wide or even multiple county-wide. And if you could just speak to that. And
I know Lisa was at county council and she had an appropriate response. I don't know if her mic's on here.
I can speak to it if you want.
Yeah.
Through you, your worship. So all I said at county council and is, of course, we'll enforce any decision that each of the municipalities make in relation to off-road vehicle within their municipality, where the consistency between county roads and the municipalities themselves would be one of the requests for consistency, in that at least within the municipality, it would be consistent. Obviously, the more consistency, the better for us, because then it's a lot easier for members to, they don't have to figure out where they are at that moment, whether it's legal or not legal. So preferably at least the county roads where the speed isn't an issue or something like that. Here we don't have any, I don't believe, that are over 80 kilometers an hour in any municipality, but some county roads are higher than that, which could be of concern. But here we could manage following the same rules within each municipality at the very least would be helpful.
thank you.
Thanks for that. Anyone else have any comments or questions at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, if I can, through you, Mayor, just a follow-up question. I certainly love the idea of educating first, because you said not all riders, as much as they're supposed to know, may know, and when they start out. So I love the idea of, the first time maybe being stopped, you're educated on what is proper use and how to drive your vehicle. Second stop would potentially be a fine. If they're stopped again, would it be the same fine, or is there a dial-up on the process, or it may be to the point that if they're being stopped a third time, then you haven't maybe quite got it yet? Is there a higher deterrent if you've been stopped more than once for the same offense?
And through your worship, last year the OPP, we moved to an e-ticketing process. So all of our frontline patrol vehicles are equipped with a computer and printer. If the officer opts to take a warning as the first means of enforcement, that is available information to officers within the next 5 to 15 minutes provincially, forever and ever. So if that same rider is stopped by another officer a week from today, and the officer goes back to the vehicle and makes that query, it will show that interaction that rider received a warning. So likely the next step would be an offense notice. Right. And as Sergeant Kavanaugh was getting at, if we see repeated behavior, that we can escalate the system or the process to a summons to appear in court and seek a higher penalty. So,
Okay.
and let the judicial officer make that
Okay.
determination.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Sounds like we're winding down. Any other questions concerning this? Okay, Lisa, I guess you're moving on, so we're told, I believe. That's happening soon. So any last words you'd like to say to my council before we say goodbye to you?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just thank you for the last few years. It's been a great opportunity here. You have a very good police service looking after you, just so you know. There are great people here, human beings and officers who just are doing great work every day. So I'm been very honored to be here with them. They're an excellent group. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and it's been an honor to meet you and work with you too. So thank you very much for what you do. All right, Council. So we have this delegation then. I'm looking for a motion then to receive the delegation at this time. Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? And then that's carried. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your delegation. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, R1 then would be Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer. And this report is regarding our transfer station bridge replacement status update. Candace, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to give council a brief update on this capital project. Current status is that DM Wells and Associates, who is the consulting engineer on the project, arranged to have test pits and soil sample analysis completed on the site. That has been finalized with positive results. Everything that we dug the test pits with township forces, so just have the excavator up there every Monday, so we were able to dig the test pits and get that accomplished very easily with no cost to the township. The next steps is a request for quote, an RFQ, pardon me, has been released by the consulting engineer to manufacturers that manufacture the modular bridges that the township is considering. We should have the results within the next couple of weeks of the RFQ for the 40-foot span modular bridge. In the meantime, township staff and the consulting engineers working with the Conservation Authority in order to get the permits that are required in order to put the bridge in place. All in all, things are moving ahead smoothly, but at lightning speed, I have to say, in order to get the asset in. Haven't run across any huge hiccups, and DM Wells and Associates have been a great asset working with us on this project. One other quick thing, the existing concrete abutments and structure will be completely removed. There is some large concrete abutments there that you would see. They are going to be taken out, just in case council has any questions in regards to that. If we run into any issues in regards to obtaining an ORCA permit, I will advise council and let you know that we've hit a stall there, but preliminary discussions show that that will not be the case. As for the financial impact of the RFQ, obviously I'll report back to council when those results are known.
Yeah, thanks for that report.
For any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions at this time on the transfer station bridge? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Candace, just quickly, you mentioned that there will be limited interruptions to the opening hours. Like, do we feel will be closed at all, or could be a week or 2 weeks? Yeah, again, looking in your crystal ball, what do you think?
We're hoping just a Wednesday night.
Okay.
One Wednesday night is what we're hoping. We should be able to complete it. They'll mobilize on the Monday. The transfer station is open. When the transfer station closes, we commence construction. We'll lose the Wednesday evening, which is the slowest time for the transfer station, with the goal to be open enough to accept traffic on the Saturday. That is the optimum schedule when you start digging in the ground. There is a disclaimer attached, of course, because it is a bridge. So it's obviously it's heavy duty construction. So assuming all goes well and we don't run into any surprises, they don't suspect anything beyond a Wednesday evening at this time. Definitely, we're not talking a couple of weeks or anything like that.
Okay, awesome. And just to add, if I can, Mayor, and we'll obviously communicate that to people as we get closer to the
yes.
date.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, once we have some sort of idea of timing, yeah, we'll follow our
Okay.
usual channels.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Are there weight restrictions on that bridge right now, Candace?
No,
No? Okay.
but we're treating it as if there are. So
Okay.
there's 2 weight restriction classes for bridges. There's 5 tons and then there's 2. So we're just making sure everything that's coming in and out of there is between 2 and 5.
Okay.
And which is pretty much what we have anyway. We would have the odd truck carrying out would be 6. So it was just a very easy tweak on our end, but no weight restriction has been formally applied, but staff has just readjusted the delivery times and schedules to keep between that 2 and 5. So we're basically following a self-induced weight restriction at this time, just for comfortability's sake.
Okay. Thank you.
Just another question. I guess staff and your team's probably already looked at every scenario, but just in case, I guess that something went wrong, which it hasn't in our township in a long time, but I just wondered if you had thought about having a bin closer down to the road just in case. Yeah, that's what I figured you'd already talked about that.
Yeah, so depending on how we get closer to construction and we look at, depending on the manufacturer, their recommendations, the installation company will have a pre-construction meeting, have a discussion, and there has been chatter about having a couple of recycle bins and 1 transfer station bin put at the front parking lot to have it there just in case, something goes wrong. But
yeah, I knew your team would be all over that, so. Okay, thank you. Any other questions then from council at this time? All right, seeing none, then I'll take a motion then to receive this report on the transfer station bridge. Councillor War, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And then that's carried. Thank you. Okay, then on to R2 then. Candace, we were just talking about this. This is regarding our off-road vehicle access to township-owned roads, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is just a continuance of the delegation. As council is aware, the township did release a public survey in order to obtain public opinion on the township's approach. As you can see, it was an outstanding response. Definitely, it's the highest response we've ever received, with 562 surveys completed. So it's definitely a hot topic within the township. You can see the results laid out in the staff report, with 82% in favor of ATVs and ORVs being permitted on township roads or streets. Regardless, 76% did not feel it was necessary to define a season. 66% did not feel it was necessary to define operating hours. So obviously they're looking for a carte blanche type approach. Is what the public is looking for. That being said, council is able to move forward with from a risk and liability perspective as to what they feel is in the best interest of the township. Also, staff has inserted some general comments. There was lots of comments received, but they were condensed into themes as to most commonly heard. So anything from, noise concerns, underage operators, disrespectful and unsafe, public education signage requirements. Some thought the trails should be open for multi-purpose use, but that is something that I don't believe that we'll see. So, all in all, I don't think there's any comments here that surprise staff from any perspective. I think we could what did surprise us is the sheer amount of participation. That was a huge number, which is great to see. Our township our residents really engage when there's something going on that they're interested in. So that's great to see. That accompanied with the delegation today, I think we'll be in a position to at least draft a document for council's consideration to take the conversation to the next step. I think we've had the conversation, we've heard from the OPP, where Peterborough County sits. They are going to be a couple of more months at least before we're seeing where they're heading in the county. But I think as OPP has requested, they would like to see a consistent approach within the boundaries of each lower tier municipality. if we adopt the bylaw, that's the best way to have a voice. So if we adopt a bylaw where we in one way, and that'll then obviously be forwarded on to the county, they'll be able to see what Asphodel-Norwood's approach is before they adopt their bylaw, which I think may assist in that conversation as to the route they go with their roadways within our borders. So I would say that would probably be the next step, would be to draft a bylaw for council's consideration, and to just kind of take this conversation to the next level and see where we're going. I think we've talked to the public, we've talked to the OPP, we've talked to the county. Peterborough Public Health is not going to give comments at this time as they deployed all of their staff under emergency, obviously due to the pandemic. As far from an insurance perspective, have reached out, but since it falls under the highway, if we go under the Highway Traffic Act route, obviously from an insurance perspective, it's different than if we take on a municipal bylaw. So I will leave it for council if you have any questions or you want to chat it about a bit further before we determine a direction. I'm open.
Council, Councillor Walsh, please.
Kenneth, would you be able to share when we do that report, or even share in advance? I'm just thinking of our neighboring municipalities. So the Douro-Dummer, the Havelock Belmont, Trent Hills, Otonabee, South Monacan. It'd be just kind of nice to know where they're at. Doesn't mean that we necessarily have to follow their approach, but it would just be nice to understand our neighboring municipalities, kind of where they sit on this as well.
I know Trent Hills, well, they've adopted, they're open to all roadways. Havelock, Belmont, Bethune, we know they just adopted their bylaw and restricted certain areas of the municipality and daytime use, time of day and time of year, but opened it. Otonabee, South Monacan hasn't started the conversation as of yet. I think they're waiting to see what the county does before they go. They're kind of taking the opposite approach, and I'll have to reach out to Douro-Dummer. I'm not sure exactly where they're at, but I can include that in the next report. They're the only ones that I don't know where they're at, so I can find out.
Okay, and again, that's not to say we have to follow, but it's just kind of nice to know what's happening around us.
Okay, I can do that.
Deputy Mayor Byrd, I seen your hand.
Yeah, thanks very much. I wanted to mention that Cavan Monaghan had opted out of allowing four-wheelers or ATVs on their roads, and the mayor stated a comment. He was basically waiting to get the final of the transportation master plan before they decided what they were going to do. And their policing costs, now they're with the city of Peterborough Police, have, I believe, Roger, you might need to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they've jumped at least 4 times just with calls from ATV use where people may hear them or see them, and they get the city police get a call and they have to investigate it. And anyway, they've really struggled with this, and I think maybe perhaps we're rethinking they maybe should have gone the other way, just because the costs are so high right now after opting out. But they are too waiting to see where the county goes on it before, I'm sure they'll take another look at it. And just a comment, looking forward to seeing a bylaw. And after the conversation with the OPP, with everything more covered under the Highway Traffic Act than I thought was covered. Certainly keeping bylaws to a minimum for restrictions, because if everything can be covered under the Highway Traffic Act, I certainly think that's the way to go. And I don't know, I have an issue with looking at seasonal use, just because we don't really get winters anymore. So I do have an issue with seasonal use. Time of day, I would look at, but again, that's covered under the Highway Traffic Act. But I think having seasonal use might not be effective, because we don't get heavy winters, and you really don't see snowmobiles and four-wheelers sharing the road very often with the amount of snow we get here. So that's just a comment. But something we can think about as we move forward with the bylaw. And I think that's it for comments from me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Archer, I seen your hand.
Yeah, no, I just had a question. I probably should ask it sooner too. But because we have county roads through our township, if the county, would the county bylaw could be different than ours? Does that mean if you're traveling on the county road, that it would be a different bylaw than if you pulled off on the 10th line off County Road 42, for example? Would you end up having two different sets of bylaws if we don't go along with the Highway Traffic Act? Just a question.
Go ahead, Candace.
Yes, there would be two sets of rules. That's why Lisa Darling was trying to say that she would like consistency, at least within each municipality. So regardless of what road you're on, within that municipality, the same rule book applies. And that's what they're hoping for. But if the county takes a different approach and say restricts all of, 2, 40, 45, 42, 38, like if they restrict all of the county roads in our township, then that's going to have a different approach. And which is interesting considering I thought Highway 7 would have already been off limits, but considering Highway 7 isn't, and only 35 and the 115 currently are, I mean, I think that's something the county needs to take into consideration as well. But we'll have to, at least our voice will be heard when we put it forward at the county table. And if we have to tweak a bylaw based on their approach, so be it. But I think what we want in our township is more important than waiting for the county, from my perspective, waiting for the county to make a decision and then reacting. It's like, no, these are our residents. This is our township. This is what we would like to see. And we should advocate for that.
Okay, thank you. No, that answers my question.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor, I just a comment to Candace and staff. I just wanted to say it was a great survey, and you could tell by the number of people that engaged in the community, like how important this is to the residents. So I just wanted to thank Candace and the staff for doing another great survey that people could participate in.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah. Mel and I are getting it down to a science now, I think.
No doubt.
I'll just make a couple comments. So talking about the survey then to Candace, so 82% of the people that was surveyed wanted ATVs or ORVs on the road. So that leaves 18% for the 100%. Was the other 18% completely against it, or was there some that just said that didn't matter to them too?
No, it was a yes or no. So it would be no. Now that being said, there was comments, that people would say no, but, or yes, but, and that's what the commenting section was for. Some people said, as you can see in the staff report, should be consistent with other municipalities. Trails should be open for multi-purpose use. I think that's where we could run into troubles with the winter use, is with the snowmobile clubs and using the OFSC trails. So we'll just have, again, that comes back down to education and making sure that they know if we are open 12 months a year for ATV use on the roads, that where they're able to go is very clear. It isn't that you can go everywhere. So that, but of course we could probably predict that would be a concern. But no, it was a yes or no question, Mayor, to answer your question.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to have some big problems with the Trans-Canada Trail down Hastings Way for sure. It's posted, but people don't seem to pay attention, whether it be a hot spot for police down the road. That might be something we bring forward to the Police Services Board if and when this ever happens for ORVs, ATVs to be on the road. My other question then, it's more of a comment, I guess. The seasonal use, I think that's been brought out a lot, is only for the fact that people, when they have their four-wheeler, they think they can put a plow on it, and then they run down the road, and then they do their neighbors, and then they run down the road and do another neighbors, and it's something to do, and it does help, but they're not legally conforming in order to plow people's parking lots and properly light it, as far as backing up onto a road or one thing after another. So we'll really have to play that one by ear and be careful with how we word things, that people don't try to take advantage of some of the proper operation of a vehicle.
That's a good point, because I think if we allow them year round, we just have to be very clear that snow winter maintenance activities are not allowed on township sidewalks, or roadways. That is to be left to township operations. Obviously, they plow their own driveways now. You see that. It's
Yep.
just, we don't want them maintaining, going up the sidewalks and that sort of thing. But we're not seeing it now. So, you know, by opening it up, I just think the year-round seasonal is a bigger conversation. I think there's more to it. But when we bring back the report and the bylaw, I'll touch on the areas of concern that township staff have.
Yeah, thanks. I seen Deputy Mayor Burt's hand there, please.
Yeah, no, I was just going to mention that I certainly be talking more about that. And it was, I guess, a question for Barry because he's part of the Snowmobile Club. And I had not thought about four-wheelers accessing the snowmobile trails because I know they're not allowed now. And I didn't know with four-wheelers being allowed on the road January 1st, if there were more issues this past winter than previous, or have you heard anything? I was just kind of curious about that because certainly you cannot have four-wheelers on snowmobile trails.
It happens.
I can't speak if it was higher or lower this year, but there certainly is concern because when somebody comes and grooms those trails and then you have a four-wheeler go down, unfortunately, it doesn't leave a very well-groomed trail for a snowmobiler to go down. So yeah, we're going to have to somehow be able to address that Canada Trail down there, that it's not for four-wheelers.
Yeah.
Well, I think even the OFSC trails, even off the Canada Trail, like I think that OFSC trail completely, I know as an avid snowmobiler, we see four-wheelers all the time on the snowmobile trails, but there is areas that allow it. But in our area, it's not allowed. And I think we can make everything coexist. We just have to have clear, defined boundaries, and it's going to come back to that education. And maybe we should reach out to the Snowmobile Club and at least have that pre-conversation and see kind of what their concerns are if we're thinking on opening it for winter.
Great. Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor. A question to Candace, if I may. So just for clarification, if we went under the Highway Traffic Act and, you know, just assumed most of their ruling, that would not impact our insurance, our township insurance. But if we did separate bylaws, it may impact our insurance. I just want to make sure that that's the clarification point.
Yeah. So when we adopt municipal bylaws and we're managing risk,
Right.
Then yes, I'm not saying that we're going to see a premium adjustment,
Mhm.
but we would see potentially claims where our claim count would be different. But that being said, under the Highway Traffic Act, if there's an accident in the township, we tend to get brought in anyway.
Okay.
So, you know, it would all depend on claims as to whether it would have a premium adjustment or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, all great questions. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Sorry, just one more, I guess, comment. You know, what we're looking at is ATV use on roads only. We're certainly not talking about trails. We don't want to put the trail groups up in a panic. We do not want four-wheelers on trails. The Great Trail is great just the way it is. We do not want them going through there. And certainly from my experience from the trail that runs through here from Hastings through our township, you know, into neighboring townships, the condition is fabulous. You get to Hastings and head that way on the trail with ATV use, it's like this. So we don't want to see that. So we're just clarification for the public. We're talking about roads, not trails.
Yeah, thanks for that one. Any other comments or questions or concerns so far? All right, see no hands, then you may have to help me on this one, Candace, for a motion, but we'd want a motion to receive, but then to allow staff to carry on to bring back a following report to help us critique any bylaws or rules that we may be looking at.
Well, the motion would be just what's in the staff report. So it's that receives this report regarding for information, further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood directs staff to prepare a draft off-road vehicle bylaw for consideration.
Just what I said. Thank you very much. Motion by Councillor War and seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. That was great discussion. Okay, R3, back to township business. Candace White, our CAO clerk treasurer. This report is regarding our Centerline Road reconstruction project progress update, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so as everyone knows, the Centerline Road Reconstruction Project has commenced at the beginning of May. Just to let council know that the progress has been great. No major concerns, no major hiccups, all small, minor little areas of concerns by the residents have been mitigated and addressed. Flow of traffic has maintained. There hasn't been any budgetary impacts at this time. All cross culverts have been installed. They have started ditching on both sides of the road. They get about 400 meters a day. And they started in Westwood, working their way back east to try to get out of Westwood. I don't know if you've been down there, but we township forces are ditching the third line because it's slated under budget to be prepped for surface treatment next year. So this is its prep year. So there's a fair bit of work happening on the third line between Centerline and Highway 7, as well as, of course, the bridge replacement. So the contractor wanted to get out of the Westwood area as soon as possible. So they started at that end and started ditching on its way back. Obviously, they're going to continue that process till it gets to the other end. Then they're going to get into road base excavation. Once they get into road base excavation and placement, there'll be certain times and certain sections of the road that will be closed to the traveling public. Obviously, it'll be signed appropriately, but it won't be for large durations of time. Also, you can see that we've got some farm entrances that have existed for decades, that when they were installed, they weren't installed with a culvert, probably because there was no ditching and the road was level and didn't drain properly for years. So the farmer wasn't required at that time to put in a culvert. Now that we are ditching and reconstructing the road and putting in proper drainage and reconstruction practices, obviously there's not a whole lot of point to ditch, have a driveway with no culvert and ditch on the other side because there's not proper flow of water. So we're going to have to put some culverts in on some of these farm entrances that have been there for decades. That being said, we're going to address them once all the ditching has been done from one end to the other. We suspect there's going to be 3 to 5 or so that need to be completed. Nothing that's going to cause too much of a budgetary impact by any stretch of the imagination. So far, all on schedule, all on time, all on budget. For a $2 million project, it doesn't get any better than to relay a story like that. So I'll take any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Candace. That is a good news story for us, and I'm happy for staff. We don't need any more issues at this time to help aggravate our lives. So pretty straightforward. You pretty well answered most of the questions, but is there any comments or concerns from council? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Just one comment. Any resident I've spoken with is very pleased with the work the contractor is doing. Looks clean and neat, and so just passing that along to township staff. And yeah, I never thought of it, but I guess that end of the township will be a little congested between Western Bridge, third line, center line, and then the bridge on the highway, on Highway 7 as well. So probably a wee bit of rerouting of traffic for the summer. So I hope the residents on those sidelines are understanding this year.
Yeah, please, council, any good news stories, pass them on. We're looking for them all, please. Councillor War, please.
Through you, Mayor. I was just wondering if there was any cost sharing for the culverts going into any of the agricultural properties on the center line, or if it's all being taken on by the township.
That hasn't been determined yet. So once the cost, I suspect my direction will be that the township will absorb the cost, only because they've been there for 30 years and they weren't required to they should have been put in a culvert in when they were put in. That being said, if there's been some entrances put in that weren't given permission to have them installed and they just appeared, then we need to take a look at that. So there's more to tell on the farm entrances from the financial implication route, whether they are going to remain, and make sure that the entrances that are there are safe ingress and egress, and that they have permission to install them. So all that is a bigger conversation, and I'm not able to fill in all of the details today. But it will be brought back to another update you'll see later on once they get all the ditching done, and we kind of tackle that once we know how many there are to deal with.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. Not everybody will be happy with the decisions made, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have to work with. So any other questions or comments from council at this time on this report? Seeing none, then I'm looking for a motion then to receive the report, please. Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. R4, Candace, do you need that drink of water yet? You've been talking a lot. No, you're good. All right. So R4 then would be this report's regarding the results of the recreation survey number 2. Zip line.
Yes, no.
Oh, darn.
Thank you, Mayor. So these are the results of the second recreational survey that was released by the township. Again, you can see great response for our community. They're really engaging. 314 responses with 134 from the senior demographic. You can see the breakdown in the following chart where 79, well, really 129, 139, yeah, like 60 plus. That's amazing. Like we even had 10 that were 80 plus. So who's to say that, you know, our senior demographic isn't catching on to technology? The survey found that the biggest barrier to attending programs is the time offered. You know, will be weekday evenings with an alternative of weekday morning. So obviously when we get to a point post-pandemic where we're able to take a look at programming across the township, whether we are supporting an existing program, whether we're filling a gap by creating a new program to ensure that a healthy complement of recreational and cultural programs are being offered to the residents. We're going to obviously go back to these 2 surveys, and time, whether it's time of day, time of year, time of week, all of this data will come into play before we obviously set something in stone and put a program in place. This is invaluable data because obviously if you don't do this research, then you know you put something out and you hope a Tuesday evening is for the best. But now we know that's not for the best. So don't make it a Tuesday evening. So, you know, this has been really, really helpful. Some other things, you know, the Senior Friendship Club has been a great club in our community. As you can see, we specifically asked about that so we can try to assist them to grow that group. And because you can see 37% said that they were aware of the Friendship Club. So there's obviously a gap there. So we can, you know, once they get back up and running, again, this discussion full post-pandemic, we can push some information on that club. Music in the Park was another big event that the residents would like to see to come back, which is great. List of ongoing initiatives, Boys and Girls Club, the Kawartha Boys and Girls Club for summer of 2021. Sorry, I have seen their numbers and looking fantastic. We have a couple of weeks that people are on waiting lists, a couple of weeks. It's funny, when we did the Master Rec Plan survey and we did survey number 1, we asked about day camps and we asked the weeks that you would participate and the weeks you wouldn't. The 2 weeks that people said that they wouldn't participate are lining up directly with the registration. Those surveys are lining up directly with what the Boys and Girls Club are seeing. So they're taking 30 kids every week through all of July and all of August. And some of the weeks are completely full with waiting lists, and some of them are on, you know, the slower side, but they suspect they'll fill up or be pretty close to being full. Some have 28 out of 30, some have 25 out of 30. Some families are waiting to get through July and then make sure their kids like it before signing up for August, you know, that sort of thing. So it's going to be a great asset to the township. They're going to base out of the picnic shelter at the community center outside there. So that's where they're going to be based out of. Recognition of Trails Day, the Trails Day Challenge, you can see we had, it was a great response with that and everyone had fun. I know I did 15,000 steps, so I'm hoping that my fellow counselors and staff were also recognizing Trails Day. And I never left my property, so recognition of Canada Day. So it's kind of big and exciting. You're going to turn the township red and white with at-home decorating kits, so that's going to be fun. Partnership with the Lions Club for outdoor recreation kits. 37 families was the final total, with approximately 50 local children being able to experience an outdoor recreation kits for those families who need a little assistance, being able to provide some of that outdoor fun for the summer. It looks like we're going to be getting those kits up and running later on the 23rd, 24th of June is when we suspect to get them out. We're going to do the kits and the Canada Day kits at the same time. So we'll be putting all of those together in council chambers at once so we can distribute them out to the community. Creation of the promotional material for existing community programs for post-pandemic is ongoing behind the scenes. And the 2021 Business and Community Awards. I was going to talk about it in my CIO list, but I guess I can mention it now. So that nomination period has closed with great success. So we just had a meeting this morning to talk about the logistics on how the rest of this program is going to roll out. We are hoping that we're going to be able to have a small in-person event in the fall. We are not going to run a summer event. Summer events are never highly attended. People are busy doing other things with their families. So we do find September or October are the best months to host a community event to get the highest amount of participation. So that is what we're going to do. So we're going to plan throughout the summer. The committee will have to meet. So Councillor Archer, it's Mayor Bonneau and Councillor Archer that is going to sit on that with a couple of township staff. We'll go through the nominations. And that's going to happen in July. June is officially booked. So we are looking at July to be going through those and to get the trophies, etc. So thank you to the community and for everyone that submitted nominations. We have a little bit of work and some tough decisions ahead of us. And I think that's it. In regards to that report, Mayor, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you. Questions from council? Any comments? Concerns? Any other ideas? Councillor Walsh.
More or less through you, Mayor, just a comment. That's really positive news, Candace, regarding the Boys and Girls Clubs. I know I spoke to you about this yesterday. It just, again, goes to show that that's something that our community wanted through our surveys. And it's nice to see that our community is engaging in that opportunity, because I think what that allows is for the Boys and Girls Club to consider doing, more programming into the fall over winter when they've had really good response dates to date. So that's really, really encouraging to hear that the summer program is booking strong.
It is, it's great to see.
Anyone else? All right, no hands then. Thank you, Candace, for that report. Looking for a motion then to receive the recreation survey. Deputy Mayor Burt, and seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? And then that's carried. Thank you. R5, Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer. This is regarding the management action list from council, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, council, you'll see what's coming forward on June 22nd. We have a big public meeting that day. We have a delegation from Chris Kowalik from the city of Peterborough in regards to the community safety and well-being plan, in regards to kind of the draft submission that's going to be submitted for the July 1st deadline. As you can see, the province has not granted an extension. There's going to be a consent application. We're going to take a look at the voting method. There'll be a staff report coming forward, again, recommending the same voting methods that were used in the 2018 election, but that staff report will come forward. We'll take a look at the Trent River access points. Obviously, things will have been being used, but they'll be opened up, so we'll be able to see at least a few weekends there. I was there last weekend. I'm popping by there each day on the weekend just to kind of visually put my eyes on what's happening there. Nothing concerning that I've seen to date. Yeah, everything's going good. So I'll be giving a positive report back to council, I suspect, but stay tuned on that. Yeah, unless council has any questions, you can see what's coming then in July, because then the next 2 months we go to one meeting for each meeting in the summer, so things will be able to slow down. Mel and I will be able to get something done with only one agenda per month. So that's kind of, we're looking forward to that. There'll be the presentation by Baker Tilly on the financial statements. Going to be a fair few public meetings coming forward. We've got some zoning bylaw amendments coming up. So some of the ones on the bottom are going to be coming up here, and there's been chatter. I was talking, I'll just run this by council. I seen what has been coming in and the applications, and I'm wondering if throughout the summer, we may have to have a meeting where it's just planning apps, zoning bylaw amendment, planning apps only. We get through them relatively quickly, and for the amount of time it takes us to go through them, it means more to the applicant to have to wait that whole month until we have a next meeting in the summer. So it all depends on the 20-day appeal period when the county gets back, or sorry, the 20-day notice period, and when the county gets back, whether we can hit it and it makes sense or not. Stay tuned. If we feel that that makes sense, then I'll reach out and see if we can get a date in place to just deal with all those zoning amendments for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just like we're open for business. We've been bragging about this for years now.
Yeah.
And to delay something that can help people to move things along, just in that little, the process is rough enough as it is without us being on a holiday to a certain extent, or so I agree.
When you're on holidays, I'm on holidays.
There is no holiday. Sorry.
No.
Just when we don't have council anyway. So
Exactly.
Candace, I'm sorry to interrupt you on that, but it was a strong point for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm fine, Mayor. I don't have anything else to report to council unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Council, any questions on the management action list? Okay, seeing none, then I'll take a motion then to receive as it was given to us. Councillor Archer made the motion, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And then that's carried. Thank you. All right, on to correspondence for action then. C13, City of Barrie, regarding the National 3-Digit Suicide Crisis Hotline. Candace, I just want to ask a question before I ask to open it to council.
Sure.
We have a 3-digit hotline number in the county already, I believe, for any type of crisis and one thing like that, right? It's like 311 or something like that, I believe. 211, yeah, something like that.
But I think this is different.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think this is different. Yeah.
I didn't want to get it confused, so.
Oh, no, it's going to be addressing a different concern, so. Great.
Okay, it's open for discussion, council. What's your thoughts, or how do you want to take this one? Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor, I think a 3-digit, like something that's easy to remember. I think it would assist a lot of people in our community in the rural areas. I know that there's a 100 nationally, it's a suicide awareness, but 1-800 number. I think that kind of mindset, you need something easy to remember that might help you. So my thoughts are to receive and support.
Okay, there's a motion, then seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. So it's open for discussion on the motion then, please. Nothing to discuss? Okay, I'll call for the motion then, please. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Ward. C14, Township of Terrence Bay, regarding advocacy for reform MFIBA. Any thoughts, concerns? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I spoke to Candace about it because I know this can be an awful pile of work for municipalities, not so much in ours at this time, but it could be. And it does look like a good starting place. So I would say that, yes, I will put forward to receive and support.
Okay, there's a motion. Is it seconded by anyone? Councillor Walsh. It's open for discussion on the motion. Councillor Ward, please.
Just a comment. I'm all for supporting it, but I'm wondering if we send it back to the local municipality to support it instead of to maybe the local MPP, as our area doesn't have area of concern, that we send it back and support it to the municipality itself.
That would have to be Deputy Mayor Burt. Do you want to adjust your motion?
Fine.
You're fine with that? Okay, Councillor Walsh, you second it? Are you fine with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that's good comment. Thank you, Councillor War. So there's a motion on the floor. Everyone understands the motion? All in favor then, please. And then that's carried. Thank you. Councillor liaison reports. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring forward at this time? Okay, seeing no hands, I have something I can bring forward, and that has to do with the CEO resignation from the library. Is that we've put out to have people apply. We've had people apply, and it's going good so far. Other than that, I can't discuss who they may be, but we're going to be having discussions with them here in the near future. So that's just a report or an update for you. Candace, please.
Mayor, has there been any chatter as to when the recruitment's going to take place and when the library board plans to have someone in the chair?
I believe, Candace, I think we're looking, we're trying to get it done as fast as we can, obviously, but I believe it was July the 5th, something like that.
Yeah, and we don't need an exact date, but you're hoping to have someone in there early July.
Yes, yeah, we don't want to leave the staff that we have there right now stranded when the province opens things up and there's only the two of them running. So
yeah.
So we're going to have interviews here coming up here in the next few weeks, I believe. So, okay, any other questions on my little blurb there? And nobody else has anything else? Then okay, thank you. On to the CAO clerk's treasurer's list then, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, I wanted to advise council, we're getting some questions. Yes, there is going to be a second dose vaccine clinic held in Norwood at the community center from July 12th to 14th. That is the only, though it'll be in those dates. They haven't determined if they're going to run the full 3 days, but they have scheduled those 3 days. And based on demand and where we're at that time, obviously that's still a month away, so they may adjust, but to date they will be coming to Norwood for sure. It's just we don't know if it'll be 1 day, maybe 2 days. They're skeptical that they would require a full 3-day clinic here, but they are coming back. The town hall ramp, the footings were poured this morning, so that project is moving ahead. Just want to advise council, the tree that there's 3 trees on the town hall property. There's one that's right up next to the building. I believe it's a walnut tree. It's right up against it and basically leans on the building now. So that will be coming down, as well as the maple tree will be trimmed, just to let council know that that's happening. The center garden that's there, that was put in 1978. It was put in by the IODE. There is a plaque that is on the front. That concrete stone flower bed structure, we have reached out to members that group is no longer functioning, but we did reach out to a member and spoke to them, and we have taken that plaque off, as that concrete structure will be coming out, and that plaque will be put on a stone in the new garden. So things are moving ahead there, but there is obviously a ways to go. The library, the courtyard outside of the library in Norwood is, I was speaking to the contractor this morning, is still scheduled to start middle of the month. So another week or 10 days or so. So we are moving ahead there, maybe even before then, but anything before then will be a bonus. The Westwood Bridge is still on schedule. Nothing to report to council on that. The Shop Local campaign is going to start next Monday and run through to September. I don't know if council remembers, but we had a pretty successful Shop Local campaign that we kickstarted because of the pandemic. Well, we're going to keep going with that. It's going to have a slightly different feel to it because I think back then we were all just reeling and banding together because of the pandemic, and we're going to have a slightly different feel to it, but the local business owners truly appreciated the township giving back to them in that way, so that's good news. Lots of great feedback in regards to the banners and the hanging baskets that have went up in the village. Received another email about it this morning, so that's nice to see, to help counterbalance all of the places we have tore apart in the village, to help some of it look a little colorful and cheery. And finally, I want to talk about the Victoria Street sanitary main replacement project, the dewatering process. So unfortunately, there has been some miscommunication going around in the village that has caused some concern to some of our residents. And from a township staff perspective, I believe it's our role and responsibility to ensure that council is aware of what's happening and dealing with facts of the situation. So when you are actually approached by a resident, as obviously it's a pretty major section of the village that's in disruption, that you have the facts and the ability to respond accurately to the information that's floating out and about out there. So here are the facts. The reason that project is even occurring is to replace approximately 600 meters of sanitary main for the Norwood Park Phase 3 construction to take on extra capacity. In order to do that, that is a wet area on Victoria Street, the contractor took out an ESER, which is not a permit through the ministry, but it's an environmental registry process. Basically notified the ministry, got their permission to pull 400 cubic meters a day out of the ground to try to dewater the area to be able to open a trench to replace the sanitary main. That's all the permission they had to pull out of the ground. That didn't do it. They pulled it down a meter and then they had to, it's not going to do it. They can't open the trench. There's still too much water in the ground. There was zero impact on the aquifer and zero impact to the township wells. They did not see any impact at all, which stands to reason considering on an average day, we use 650 cubic meters a day for the village. Our permit to take water is 1,965 cubic meters a day. So when you add the 400 that they were taking out to the existing 650, you're dealing with just over 1,000 cubic meters a day. That leaves approximately 800 to 900 cubic meters a day in surplus under the township's drinking water works permit. So the township was not in violation of anything. The aquifer was not at risk, nor was the township wells at risk. That being said, it has to be looked at again. We need to take a look at a different approach. The contractor, the engineers, and the township would prefer to see construction mitigation measures used instead of an increase to the permit or to put in for a permit to take water and to increase pumping rates. That's what we're looking at right now. That's why you're not seeing the dewatering process occurring. There's a desktop and in-field hydrogeological study occurring as we speak. And what we're looking at is construction mitigation methods. We're looking at the potential of steel piling, a grout curtain, looking at being able to excavate it instead of, traditionally they open up the whole street, they excavate the whole trench, dewater the trench, place it in to take shorter, it would take 3 times as long probably, but open up the street in smaller sections. So we open up a length and a half of pipe or 2 lengths of pipe, dewater that section, put the pipe in, close the road, open up the next section and actually piecemeal it. So we're looking at that option with the hydrogeological engineers as well. Once we go through all of the construction mitigation measures, hopefully one of those will work. Obviously the grout curtain and the steel piling it has to take into consideration all the existing services in the ground. That is an old street. There is water mains running in interesting directions, services running in interesting directions, hydro, bell, gas. So when you start shoving sheet piles down through the ground, you can't be cutting off existing infrastructure that belongs to another utility. So all of these things are coming into play. By no means ever would the township or township staff make a decision to allow any infrastructure to go into the ground, knowingly know that there would be an impact to the drinking water source or the aquifer in this township. Standard of care exists, which falls on my head and every person's head that sits in on this meeting today. And I'm here to protect every single one of you and every single resident in this township. And I take that job exceptionally seriously. So please, if you hear any sort of concerning comments or questions in regards to that project, please, if you're not comfortable answering the questions that are being asked, please forward them on to me, regardless of who they are from. Send them to me and I can forward them on to Kyle. Maybe I can answer them myself. But as of sitting here right now, there is no concerns. Yes, it's stalled, but it's stalled for good reason. And it's stalled for no one's fault. We just stalled it. We're taking a look at different approaches. Everything would be great if the 400 cubic meters a day would have drained it the way we wanted it to. And we've been able to open up the street and put the sanitary main in, close it up, and away we go. Life doesn't always, work that way. So we're having to take a look at a different construction approach. I promise to keep council apprised. Again, it's going to take a bit to get this desktop Hydro G looked at. So stay tuned. Any questions in regards to that project at all?
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, not so many questions. I haven't been approached by anybody in the public, but I was just wondering, has this happened anywhere in the township or in the village before doing sewer or water works? Have you run into this issue of water? No, this is a first. Okay, just wondering.
This is one of the existing mains.
Yeah, okay.
It's existing. It's never been replaced since it was first put in, and it's deep because it goes right into the wet well at the pumping station. And obviously what was existing, 40, 50 years ago when it went in the ground, and what is existing and what's existing as far as science, hydrogeological measures, construction practices, all of those things are very different than they were back then. So, we just have to take a look at current data and to be able to make good decisions. But the sheer volume of water in there is pretty astronomical. Yeah. So, I will keep council apprised. It's been learning curve for all of us, but we have the hydrogeologists and the right engineers are at the table, and we won't be moving forward with anything until we have an engineered and hydrogeologist stamp on the approach moving forward. So we know that from a science perspective that we've proven that obviously the wells in the aquifer have been protected. So that's our number one goal and responsibility. 600 meters of sanitary main is not my concern right now. So,
did you have a follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on council at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor. Candace, thank you very much for this update. I guess it's an education for us, but it is disappointing when people are uneducated and uninformed and are passing information around the township versus just going to the right source and finding it out versus alarming people in town. I've had a couple questions asked to me about it, and I appreciate the update. Yeah, it's not how we necessarily plan to want to do it, but we're working through it. And to your point, like everybody around the table here, we are here for everybody's safety. So good to hear that we're proceeding just in a different manner. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Bit of feedback there. Anyways, I just had a comment too there. At one time when they were doing Spring Street out front of my place here, that they thought they were going to have a heck of a time just because it's called Spring Street. But whether it was that time of year or what was happening, they seemed to fly right through it, no problem. Is Is there any way, Candace, that would be later on in the year? Do you think the aquifer may be down lower, or is there thoughts behind that it might be drier a little later on in the year? What's the thought on that?
I think in some areas of the village where the water is considered localized, where the water table is localized and comes up and down in that area, yes. But I think this area has a steady flow, and I'm not saying that it may reduce it, but it's not going to reduce it enough that it's going to solve our problem.
Great, thanks. Okay, no other questions from council at this time then on this? Okay, and you have nothing else on your list then, Candace, you want to discuss? You're
No,
done?
Mayor, that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything under general business then at this time that people would like to speak up about? Seeing none, none from staff under general business. Okay, there's moving on. On the agenda, there's no closed session today. There's no notice of motion today. Then we're on to bylaws then. We'll have the clerk please read the bylaws.
Being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for the sums required during the year 2021 for municipal purposes and to establish rates of taxation to be levied during the year 2021 and to provide for penalty and interest, the final tax rate bylaw. Necessary evil.
To be read the first, second, and third time?
Yes, to be read a first, second, and third time in numbered bylaw 2021-29.
Perfect, thank you. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And then that's carried. Confirming bylaw, please.
Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held on June 8th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2021-30.
Thank you. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And then that's carried. You see our future meeting schedule ahead of you, and then on to the adjournment. So I'm looking for a recommendation that the meeting held on June 8th, 2021 be adjourned at 2:36 p.m. With council to meet for a regular meeting on June 22nd, 2021, or at the call of the chair. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, well, thank you, council. That was a lot of information today. Staff, thank you very much for the hard work that you do. And everyone be safe and let's be happy. And let's hope for some rain and some good weather also. And let's make these gypsy moths go away.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you,
Everyone take
everyone.
care.